Hi, guys. Welcome back to the That's Where I'm At podcast. If you're only listening today, I hope you'll go check out and subscribe to the YouTube channel where you can not only see our beautiful faces, but you'll be able to leave some love for our guest. Today on the show, I have Hope Hooton. Hope is an author, advocate, podcast host, and public speaker dedicated to protecting children and supporting survivors of domestic violence. After the tragic loss of her children, Alec and Lydia, Hope turned unimaginable grief into a mission for change, helping champion the Alec and Lydia Act, which was signed into law in Arizona in June 2026, strengthening protections for children and domestic violence survivors in family court. Through her memoir, There's Still Hope, A Journey of Adversity, Tragedy, and Unshakable Faith, her podcasts, Voices Against Filicide, and speaking engagements across the country, Hope shares a message of faith, hope, resilience, and advocacy to inspire others, raise awareness about coercive control and filicide prevention, and help prevent future tragedies. Hope, I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me, Laura.
I want to cry reading your bio because I know your story. And thank you so much. Um, I know that you are an unwilling participant in turning your pain into, this amazing story and this testimony. But I'm so glad that you are. I'm so glad you're using your voice to help others. So thank you so much for doing that and passing the act and everything. So I'm so excited to talk to you today. Yay, we're unwilling participants in all of this,
Right,
right?
right. We don't have a
Unfortunately,
choice.
no, we did not have a choice. So I'd love for you to kind of take us back to the beginning so that you can kind of set the scene and then telling us how this all happened, then you trying to get the act have the act into law. Is it a law?
That's
Okay.
a law.
Yeah, it's a law. It's awesome. And why it's important. So let's go back to maybe when you met. Was he your ex?
No, he was actually my estranged husband. We weren't divorced yet, so that's what
Oh,
I refer to him as.
okay. So let's go back to, even if you want to tell us a little bit of your upbringing, but tell me when you met your estranged husband.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Michigan, and to two loving parents. I have an older sister that's 8 years older than me. I was born at a pound and a half, so I am visually impaired. So I've had struggles from the very beginning, but as you can tell, moving forward in my story, that doesn't stop me,
Yeah.
even though I didn't know what was going to transpire. So after graduating high school, I went to community college for education. I knew I wanted to be a special education teacher. Then I got my associate's degree and I transferred to a 4 year university
Mm,
to get a special education degree.
yeah.
And so at the 4 year university, when I transferred, it would have been my junior year. I had a roommate in my dorm room that liked to go to this Christian organization on campus called InterVarsity.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so she asked me one time if I would like to go. It was like a Thursday night. They always had it on Thursdays, and I didn't have anything to do. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll come with you. And I really liked it. The community there, it was all college students. They did a lot of fun things around campus. And then we had our Thursday night like service and worship time
Yeah.
at the little sanctuary. And so it was really, really good. Through that organization, I met my estranged husband.
Mhm.
He was just a friend at first. We became close and went to the movies together and hung out in big groups of people like you do in college.
Yeah.
We all ate together at like the cafeteria. And, it was great. I started to have feelings for him and I asked him out, and the first red flag was he said no. And so that should have been
Oh,
my first red flag of like,
yes.
okay, why does he keep saying no? And so after a lot of reflection and a lot of prayer, I kept getting like this nudge from God. It
Yeah.
was God. And so I asked him, out again. And he was like, I don't know. And I asked him, why do you keep saying no? Does it have something to do with my vision? And he said, yes, I'm concerned that you won't be as independent. And I was like, I am super independent, super driven. The only thing I can't do is drive a vehicle.
Yeah.
So I do everything else. And so he was like, okay, we can try dating. So that should have been like my first flag of like,
Yes.
this person isn't, excited to date me. It's like I'm
Right.
like pulling their arm.
Yes. Gosh. You got to twist their arm to go on a date with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I've been there too. But I want to tell you that I was a speech language pathologist for 15 years because my son has special needs. And so I went back to school to do that, get a degree as well like that. And it's it's amazing the journeys we've taken, right? We do what we need to do. Like you have um this vision impairment, and I'm sure you met a lot of amazing special education teachers along the way
Yeah.
and wanted to be like them.
Correct.
Did you end up helping children with vision impairments or just special education in general?
Special education in general. So my degree is in cognitive impairments and learning disabilities.
Oh,
So
lovely.
so I did 2 years of severe and profound disabilities.
Mhm.
So children that are in like wheelchairs that have
Yes.
a lot of issues. And then I transitioned into being a resource teacher for the rest of my time. And I was a special education teacher for over 10 years. And then if you include my all of my practicum experience
Yeah.
that we had to have, I mean, it's more like 15 because we had to
Yeah.
do practicums and student teaching like every single semester for our program. It was really high
Wow.
intent.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's amazing. And okay, so thank you for sharing also of the red flag. Like having to be, when I was listening to your story in another podcast, I'm like, oh, I love that she tells us the red flags because to some people, they could skate over that, right? And be like, well, why is he saying no? Well, I'll just ask him again. I'll ask him a different time. Or I'll ask him if it's because of my vision. Well, he even said, yeah. Did he say, I guess we can try dating? Did he? Oh, yeah. There, it's like, no, we don't want someone who needs to try to love us. No.
but I think as a young 20-year-old, I
Of
mean,
course.
he was my first
Yeah.
boyfriend really.
Yeah.
So like I didn't see that as like a red flag. I was excited.
I
So
know.
I mean,
Listen, me too.
these red flags are always in like hindsight. I want to tell your audience, like I didn't
Oh,
know these at the time.
no, me either. I've talked about all the red flags I missed, and I'm like, that didn't seem like a red flag. This didn't seem like a red flag. They don't look like red flags. That's why we have to talk about them. So thank you for doing that. So you guys decided to try dating. So what did that look like?
Yeah, so we dated for 2.5, 3 years before we got engaged.
Okay.
And we started to plan our wedding. It was August 15th, 2015 was our wedding date. And right before we were going to get married, I started applying for other teaching jobs outside of the state of Michigan because when I graduated from my university, I got a teaching job at a charter school, but it was gen ed. So I taught general education, third
Okay.
grade and fifth grade. And I really, really wanted to do special education. And
Mhm.
so at the time, all of the teaching jobs were like filled in Michigan.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to leave their job.
Yeah.
So I started looking outside of the state and I got hired on the spot at a career fair at my university for an Arizona school. And so I took the job. So right before we got married, we moved to Arizona. We'd never been there before. We drove across country with a
Wow.
moving truck and sight unseen. We picked a condo. Thank goodness it wasn't like, this place that looked beautiful online and really was
Yes.
sketchy. It was really beautiful. So that
Yeah.
like we lucked out. um,
Yeah.
so yeah, we moved and about a month later we had to fly back to Michigan to have our wedding because it was already planned. So we didn't want to change anything.
Yeah.
So
What did he think of you taking a job in a different state like that?
He was excited. He always stated that he wanted to move outside of Michigan,
Okay.
and he was excited about it. He had just graduated from college himself, so he was in the process of looking for jobs. We were like a year apart, a year and a half apart with our
Mhm.
schooling. So I graduated and was teaching, had a job before he did. He was still in school. So, yeah, he was excited to start this new adventure in Arizona. And, um, you know, there wasn't, there wasn't like huge red flags at the time.
Okay.
Looking back,
Yeah.
there was like always manipulation, and coercive control, but I didn't notice it at the time.
Right.
With little things, it was like if we wanted to go to a restaurant, he would ask me like, which restaurant do you want to go to? And I'd give him four options. And then he'd say, oh, I don't like those options. Let's go here instead. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was always, like I would pick something, but then he would have a reason why he didn't like it. And so we
Yeah.
would end up going with his choice.
And this is the thing I want to tell people. It's like that doesn't sound like a red flag, but it is because it's dismissive. It's a constant like put down. It's a constant like, no, your choices are terrible. They ask you so so you can have the opportunity to then be put down, and they don't do it as a put down. They go like, no. But I mean, my ex sometimes would say like, you don't ever make good choices, like why are you making those decisions, that kind of thing. So I was going to ask you, as you're dating, before you said you were together about 2.5 years or something before you got married,
Yeah.
what did you see other things along the way that looking back now were little bits of manipulation, coercive control?
Yeah, besides the restaurant thing, there was always that, like with what we ate or like what we bought at the store. And like those were such little minute things,
Yeah,
that I just dismissed them because I wanted to make him happy. And
of course.
I still liked them. So it wasn't like, oh, okay, this is like not a horrible, deal. I still like, whatever we're picking out. It's just not my favorite, but I'll go with it.
Right.
Um, and the other thing, he had bursts of anger. So he would
Oh,
get really like his temper, like he'd be fine, and then if something happened and he'd like spiral out of control, like get
mhm.
really angry really quickly. There's one incident in my book where I talk about he got mad for some reason and he broke his little step stool armoire thing that you used to like put your feet on by the
Wow.
couch. He like kicked it so hard he like broke it. And then he also, I had an iPad back in the day
Yeah.
that I used for my teaching, my visually impaired program through Michigan. They bought it for me, so it
Yeah.
wasn't something I bought. They bought it for me, and he got mad, not necessarily at me, but got mad at like the iPad, like it wasn't responding, it was slow. He snapped it in half,
Oh my gosh. Snapped it in half?
like snapped it in
Wow.
half. And I was so shocked and like sad because like, A, I didn't pay for that.
Right.
It was bought for me by like the institution I was going to. So then I would have to like explain what happened to the iPad, like
Yeah.
and all this stuff. So and I knew in my gut like this isn't right, but like those are so few and far between over the 3 year
Yeah.
span that
Yeah.
I like it happened and then like it didn't happen for like another like year. So
Yeah.
like it wasn't like a consistent thing. So I mean, I
Right.
had like worries about it, but dismissed those.
And that's why it's hard when people say, like, I would have left at the first red flag. I'm like, you wouldn't have, because they don't happen all the time. We don't stay for as long as we stay. Like, I didn't stay for 3 decades for fun. I stayed 3 decades because every once in a while you get the good and then you get the bad
Hmm.
again. It's like a
Hmm.
slot
Yes.
machine. It's the
Yes.
intermittent reinforcement, it's the intermittent abuse. And so, because it's intermittent, you don't know what's right and what's wrong and what's real or not.
Correct.
That's the hard part. So was he different, or did you see something different after you guys got married? And do you have, I don't know if you want to tell me something before that, but I was curious to know how he was.
Um, Yeah, when we moved to Arizona and we got married, that was a good time in like the
Oh,
relationship, right? You were
nice.
talking about like good,
Yeah.
happy times.
Yeah.
There was no issues.
Ugh,
I think we were on cloud nine with like moving and getting married and everything. And
yeah.
there was little manipulations here and there, like he wanted to be involved with like what style of bridesmaid's dress I picked out. And like
Oh,
I originally wanted pink as my color, and he
yeah.
said no. So I changed it to my secondary favorite color, which is blue. So our colors were green, which was his favorite color, and blue, which was mine. But
Oh,
my original color, again, was pink, and he didn't want that. So,
oh,
um,
interesting. And
so
yeah, and that's so hard. It's like those little minute things that you start to self-abandon because you said I didn't hate the foods we were eating or the places we were going, but you're self-abandoning. And that's and then you get 33 years in like I was, and I'm like, I don't even know what I like and don't like. It's terrible. You don't even
yeah,
know who you are anymore. And
yeah.
that's why it's so insidious. It's a little bit at a time. Okay, that's interesting. So then okay, so you had to choose the color of bridesmaid's dress. Okay. Oh, geez.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was involved with that. So like he helped me pick out the bridesmaid dress, and
Oh,
which
geez.
is weird because like,
Yeah,
usually guys don't care about any of that. So it's just weird. And
right.
I chucked it up to, like, oh, well, he just wants to be involved and like this is exciting for him. Like
Yeah,
again, not a red flag at the time.
right. Exactly. Now you know. Yeah, now you know as you're looking back, you can see that it was control. Yeah. So, and things were good when you guys first got married and you were working at this job that you had gotten.
Mhm. Yep, and he had a job as well. And so we were doing well. And right after we got married in August. Right after that, we got pregnant with Alec.
Oh,
So really shortly after, which was exciting because like we both wanted a child, and
yeah.
so I was super excited, and he was excited, and yeah, that was a really good part in our life. No issues. We're all,
Yeah.
excited about everything.
So
Once Alec. Oh,
tell
go
me
ahead.
about Alec. Tell me about
Yeah,
him.
so Alec, Agape Mater, was born July 15th, 2016. So tomorrow will be his 10
Oh,
year heavenly birthday. He would be
oh,
10 tomorrow.
happy
Um,
birthday.
so he loved Pokemon. Pikachu was his favorite, and he was just a bundle of joy. Just such a bright, bubbly kid,
Yeah.
always very respectful, wanted to please mom and dad. Was rambunctious because he's a boy, but you know
Yeah.
really well behaved, really good kid.
Oh, yeah.
He did have some allergies. We found out he was allergic to tree nuts and peanuts and sesame seeds. So that would give him an anaphylactic shock if he had those.
Oh, geez.
And then he also couldn't have eggs if they were like baked into something he could, but he couldn't have like raw eggs,
Oh, interesting.
because it would give him like, or not raw eggs, but like eggs, like just in a
Yeah.
pan, because
Uh-huh.
it would give him like eczema. But the sesame seeds, the peanuts, and the um, tree nuts of any kind would give him anaphylactic shock. And we
Oh my
found that
goodness.
out because when he was 1 years old, he fed him peanut butter for a late night snack before he was going to go to bed for the first time. And I was putting him to bed, and all of a sudden, I just had this gut feeling, and I could tell something wasn't right with his
Yeah.
face. So I took him to him, and he said, "Oh, he's having an allergic reaction." So we had to rush him to the hospital.
Oh my gosh. That's scary. That's
Mhm.
scary. What grade was he in?
He was in second grade when he passed away.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's wonderful. So tell me more about that after he was born.
Yeah, so after he was born, he was an awesome little bundle of joy. I did a lot of the parenting.
Mm.
His father brought in, the paycheck, and he would drive us places because, lack of transportation for me. But, I would change all the dirty diapers. He would only change pee diapers, never poop diapers. I
Oh,
would get up
geez.
in the middle of the night. I would feed him. I would do a lot of the things, and sometimes he would do those things, but it was very few and far between. And I like to say he only liked to do those things when he felt like it, when he wanted to.
Yeah.
Um, if he didn't want to, he wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was kind of, hard. And we'd moved into a new house at this point. So we were like brand new homeowners. So that was exciting.
Yeah.
And I think about 13 or 14 months after Alec was born, we tried for our second and got pregnant right away with Lydia. So um, yeah, so Lydia was born May 14th, 2018.
Yeah.
And she loved unicorns and arts and crafts. And they both had blue eyes, but Lydia had really, really like blue eyes, like pools
Mm.
of water.
Wow.
Um, and little freckles on her face. And
Oh.
she was Alec's shadow. So everywhere that he went, she went.
Oh.
And at the time of her birth, Alec couldn't say Lydia, so he called her Sissy. So that's what we referred to her by, is
Oh.
Sissy.
Oh, how
So
cute. That's so cute. That's so sweet. Okay, so Lydia's born, and then so how is the relationship going? How's the marriage going? And how is he with as a father with two kids now?
yeah, I think this was really hard for him to have two, and because my attention was pulled and put on the kids instead of him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he didn't like that. And this is when more of the physical violence started, where
Mm,
like if we were I have many memories of us driving in the car, um, and like going to the grocery store or wherever, and he'd get mad at me and he'd punch me in the arm, upper arm, or the thigh,
wow.
while he was driving, so I couldn't like escape the vehicle. So that was pretty scary. There was
Yeah.
incidences of like strangulation. There was incidences of like threats with like knives and weapons, but he always played it off as like he was joking, but like looking back, like he wasn't joking.
No, and
Um,
they do that so they don't have to take accountability. And were the kids around when he would be hitting you in the car?
yeah, they were in the back
Wow.
seat for
Oh
the
my God.
hitting parts and stuff. For like the other
Yeah.
types of physical violence, they weren't always like outside or in their rooms.
Yeah.
That stuff kind of happened at night, but specifically the kids were around when he would punch me in like the car in the moving vehicle, so I couldn't escape.
Yeah, of course. Did he say anything or did the kids say anything to him? Like, Daddy, don't do that. And did he
Mhm.
say anything like, well, mommy's being bad or anything like that?
Yeah. Alec would say, Lydia was little, but Alec would say, Mom, or, Daddy, don't hit Mom. And that's not nice. And he would just like, say, Mom, is not behaving, or Mom is not doing what she needs to do, or, Mom's not a good mom, or he like dismissed them altogether and would ignore them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's horrible and so hard. Was he physical with the children? Okay, so that's surprising for how this story ends. So this is
Well,
was
actually, it's not surprising. Statistically,
okay
they aren't physically harmed significantly
prior.
before the incidents has happened. So,
Thank you for explaining that. Thank you so much. Okay, so tell me then about the physical violence is starting. And so how long did you go through that?
so that probably started after Lydia was born, significantly like 2018, 2019, and then COVID happened, and then
Oh,
um it really started to get bad. My mom actually got in a car accident in November of 2021,
mm-hmm.
and passed away from her injuries. And
Oh,
so
I'm so
after
sorry.
her passing, I was dealing with significant grief, still trying
Yeah.
to teach, still parenting, while the abuse cycle was continuing
Wow.
significantly. Um, and then, we had financial abuse prior, where like he would monitor like what was coming into our bank accounts and like what we could spend. But the financial abuse came to a whole different level. After my mom died in November of 2021, my dad was already sick with kidney failure due to living with type 1 diabetes for
Mm,
decades, since
yeah.
he was a child. So your kidneys fail, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And he died of kidney failure in July of 2022. So like 7 months,
Sorry.
7 or 8 months apart. I lost both parents. And
Yeah,
so
that's horrible.
after they passed, the financial abuse came to a head where he decided to quit his job. And so we were having emotional abuse, physical abuse, and now significant financial abuse. He decided to quit his job and that I would be the sole provider and that he would just stay home. And Lydia was in preschool at the time. So he
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, I'll just, teach her preschool, which he didn't. I mean, he did for like, 45 minutes, an hour a day, and then left her to her own devices while
Yeah.
he went and did his own thing. Um,
And what about,
so
listen, I've heard this so many times, that, abusers just go, okay, I'm quitting my job now. But did he give a reason why he was quitting his job?
because we had because I could fully take care of the family on my teacher's salary, and we had investments because of my parents passing away. We had inheritance, so
Oh,
he was going to, live off of my money.
oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. That's terrible. It's hard enough. Did you see even more of a lack of empathy or apathy with him? Because I did after my mom passed away. And then we had another in 2021. My sister-in-law passed away, and two deaths in 2 years, really a year and a half. And it's just like it's so much to grieve. It's so much
Yeah.
to grieve. And I could really see to the point where he was apathetic, really, about why are you still sad, is why he would ask me, what he would
Mhm.
ask me.
He just didn't care. Like he was like, you know, when my mom passed away, that was really, really hard because I was close to her. And then I
Yeah.
was taking care of my dad over the phone and via FaceTime and stuff from a long distance because I lived in Arizona, he lived in Florida, and my sister
Ugh,
lived in Michigan. So we were taking care of him from a long
yeah.
distance. And he, I think, was very agitated by that because not only my time was then pulled away from, him by the kids,
Yeah.
then I was spending a lot of time trying to keep my father alive, you
Ugh,
know, for those 7 or 8 months, and trying to do what my father needed because he just lost his soulmate of, 43 years.
right.
So the lack of like real empathy and like sincerity, you could tell that he didn't like care, and
Yeah.
he like wanted to move on, or he did care, um but he wanted to be the center of things. So I can give an example. When
Yeah.
my dad passed away, we were cleaning out my dad's house. He had two houses, one in Michigan that he just purchased right before he passed, and then the one that he had with my mom in Florida. And so we were cleaning out the Michigan house and stuff, and he was helping and really, really, doing good things. He was taking care of a lot of stuff. Um, then my aunt and my sister were like, we need to fly down to Florida and take care of the Florida house.
Hmm.
And he was not happy. He wanted to come with us. And I was like, you can't come with us. You have to take the kids back to Arizona. They have to go to school, and you have to like take care of them.
Right.
This is not a vacation. This is like my
Right.
sister, my aunt, and I taking care of my parents' belongings because they passed away.
Right.
And he was so angry that like I said no, and it wasn't just me. He couldn't override my opinion this time because it was not only me saying no. My sister and my aunt wouldn't have let him come.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I
So
mean, that's good.
they kind of put their foot down, so that made him even more like,
Oh, yeah, of
like I want
course.
to I want to go. Like I can be of help, and I'm like, you know,
And it would have been more control, and it would have been maybe things you wanted to keep for memories that were sentimental. He maybe wouldn't have let you, and talked
well,
you out of it.
and this was, not to say like he was a part of our family, but like my sister and I had already lost our mom so close.
Yeah.
It was a time for us to go
Yes.
down and like take care of both of their belongings.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a time to, yeah, to go through it together as sisters.
As sisters, as siblings. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's different than with your husband or whatever. So, okay, so you're there, and then tell me what's going on next.
Yeah, so we did all that. And I went back to Arizona and this was July 2022.
Yeah.
The physical violence and the emotional abuse and financial just kept getting worse. Emotionally, and psychologically, he would just literally walk across the living room on the way to his office and just call me any curse word in the book just because I looked at him wrong or because I like looked up from my phone
Yeah.
or whatever. He would use the most heinous words possible that like didn't fit my situation at all. Like those weren't words that like I'm not any of those things,
Right.
like
Yes.
so it would really, he was really cutting me down as a person. And even before this, I lost my autonomy as a person. Like you
Oh,
said, I had no sense of like who Hope was, what Hope liked,
yeah.
uh, nothing. So
Yeah. Because you guys were young too when you got together, and
yeah,
we're
in our
still
mid
learning.
20s.
Yeah, and we were, and you're learning who you are. Yeah, I was 22 when we were started dating, and it's like you don't really know who you are. And 22-year-old Laura just wanted to be loved. So I would do
Yeah,
anything really,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And this is the thing when they're calling you names, it's like I try to explain to women when I'm coaching them, it's like it has nothing to do with you. They just are
no,
angry. They just know that whatever they say is supposed to hurt you in some
yeah,
way. And it does even make you question, well, I'm not those things. It's like we
yeah,
shouldn't even have to think about any of those things. But they're
yeah.
just trying to hurt you. Did you know, was he having any mental health issues that you knew of at this time?
Now looking back, there were always like mood swings that I
Okay.
can attribute to mental health, but he was never diagnosed or never had like any diagnosis, or it wasn't severe enough that we're like, oh, you need to go get help. It was just like mood swings where like, yeah, we would wake up in the morning, we'd be perfectly fine. I go take a shower, I come out of the shower, and he'd start, emotionally abusing me and calling me names for no reason. So
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
those huge mood swings were like the first indicator.
Right.
But at the time, even as we separated and as his mental health declined, I didn't even like correlate the earlier mood swings to what he's going to go through later on.
Right. And so let me ask you, because you said you separated. How did you make that decision, and was it easy to separate?
I made the decision because I knew that I didn't want to live like that the rest of my life after
Yeah.
losing my mom and dad at a young age. They were 63 and 64. I didn't want to live the rest of my life and then potentially, die in my 60s and not have lived. And
Yes,
so,
exactly.
so, yeah, hold on. Bye.
That's okay.
I had a pop up. I'm sorry. I'm like, ah,
That's okay. I didn't hear anything, so that's okay. This is what I tell people because they always want a checklist of narcissistic abuse or whatever. And I'm like, you don't need a checklist. Do you want to do this for the rest of your life? And that's the only question I asked myself because I didn't know I was in abuse because it was all emotional and psychological, and I didn't know anything about that. And I'm Gen X. If you weren't being hit, you weren't in abuse, so I didn't know any better. And
yeah,
now I do, and that's now why I talk about this. And just asking yourself, do I want to do this for the rest of my life? Like my parents were
yeah.
together 60 years. His parents are still alive and together. I'm like, I'm not doing this into my 90s. I'm not doing this into my 90s. Like it sounded terrible.
Yeah. And I knew that the kids, deserved better. I knew that he
Love that.
deserved better. I knew that
Yeah.
I deserved better.
Yeah.
The one thing that I told the kids, as we were separating, because they would always like at the very beginning ask, like, why are you not together? Why are you getting a divorce? And
Yeah.
I would say, because mommy and daddy aren't good together. We're good
Yeah.
apart. We're not good together,
Yeah.
and like that's what I would always say. And I would never disparage even after all of this stuff is going to transpire even before they pass away. I never disparaged him in front of the kids.
Yeah.
I never talked poorly about him because that was their father.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and they did have psychological abuse and emotional abuse, obviously, from seeing me being abused
Of
physically,
course. Of course.
and
Yeah.
hearing that in the home. But physical violence towards them, no.
Yeah. And that's what I didn't even understand. It's like I was the target, but my children they were grown when we got divorced, but it didn't matter. As we started talking, I'm like, oh, they were emotionally scarred from just everything that he did, all my emotions and the way I acted out of character when I was feeling like the bear was pushed into a corner, and
Yeah, yeah.
I was reacting, all those
Yes,
things.
the reactive abuse. Yeah, and I did
Yeah,
that. I did that too, and I think that, that's something that he tried to use against me
of
later on
course.
was he tried to use the Darvo tactic, which is deny, revert or deny
Attack.
attack,
Uh-huh.
attack, reverse victim and offender.
Yeah.
And he tried to put it on me that I was the abusive party when in actuality I wasn't. Those times that maybe I did lash out and try to
Right.
hit back, that was reactive abuse,
Yeah, you were
and
protecting yourself. And that's the thing. Yeah, all the time. Well, listen, I kicked holes in walls, I punched holes in walls, things like that. I threw things, but I didn't do those out of nowhere. You know what I mean? It wasn't just me getting mad. And I had a really hard time with that. I was told like the whole time we were married that you're a very angry person and all that. And then we got divorced and I'm like, I started to heal and I go, I notice I'm not angry. And then I started to understand, like this reactive abuse, which I don't really love that term because,
I know.
I know because it makes us sound like abusers. And I did actually do an episode a couple episodes ago where I do talk about that in the psychologist, I think she's a therapist. She said, I don't like that term. She's like, we're not the abusers. We're just protecting ourselves, from
Yeah,
what they were doing. Anyway, so I just wanted
yeah,
to encourage, but it's true that Darvo technique, they turn it around so it's our fault. And
yeah.
often, sometimes the abusers then start recording you while you're lashing
Oh,
out.
he would do that all the time. He would record me, or he would be recording like a video of the kids, and I'd like snap or whatever and like
Yeah.
yell something, and he'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna put that on Facebook and show people who you really are." And
Oh
like,
my
but that
gosh.
was out of context, right? And he never did it, but it was always threats to do it.
Yes, exactly. And this is also to control you because when I did a video recently when I talk about when like if they don't hit you, but they throw something near you or they punch something near you, it's to control you. Like you better adjust your attitude. You better adjust what you said. You better adjust you. And listen, that was the theme of my marriage was I got in trouble, quote unquote trouble, every time I did certain things and I had to adjust myself. But that's
Yeah.
part of the coercive control. It's
You
like,
were
this is,
always,
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
you were always trying to reach a goalpost that kept moving.
Exactly. Yeah, you're never going to reach it. I don't care if they tell you to do 5 jumping jacks and you do 5 jumping jacks. They're going to be like, you didn't seem excited about those jumping jacks. Those weren't very good jumping jacks. I don't think you really care about jumping jacks. And to me, it was exhausting because as a type A personality, parentified eldest daughter, I was like, I'll do anything. Let me just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And now I know there was no way to do anything. There's nothing you can do that will meet their needs, and they'll move the goalposts and go like, no, it's too. He
Yep.
would tell me often, it's too late, and I'd be like, well, I didn't know there was a deadline on whatever it was. It's so ridiculous. It's we can laugh about it now because we've done some
Yes,
healing, but
we've healed
but
through it. Yeah.
yes, but
Um,
it's exhausting. Okay, so then what did you say to him, or did you say something to him when you decided to separate?
Yeah, so the morning of October 9th, 2023, we had gotten into an argument. And I remember
Mm,
sitting on his floor of his office, and I was like, we're not good together. Like, we need to like
yeah.
think about like separating, getting a divorce. And he used Darvo, and he pulled up the police website, he pulled up DCS's website, and he was like, if you divorce me, I will call these people. And so that was another tactic. And I was like, I
Yeah.
knew at this point, I knew, and he said it very calm. He wasn't mad at that point, but I knew that if I was going to continue to push him,
Yeah.
he was going to explode. And so by that point, I could learn how to read his emotions and
Okay.
how to regulate those. Obviously, as survivors, we learn to do that with our abuser.
Yeah.
And so I left the home to just take a walk around the block to cool off. The kids were in the home, they were just in their rooms playing, everything was fine. And I had called an attorney to make an appointment, an initial
Mm.
appointment. And when I was calling that attorney on the phone while I was walking around the block, he'd called me like 8 times. And like on the eighth time, I finally answered after I got off the phone with the attorney's office. And I said, we're going to get a divorce. This is not working. That we are not right together. This is not fair to Alec and Lydia. It's not fair to you and I.
Yeah.
And so, because I would never use like you're abusive. I would never say that, but
Yeah.
I was trying to frame it in like a positive, more softer light. Um,
Yeah.
and his reaction was nothing I could expect. He said, "Well, then come and get the kids because I'm going to kill myself in front of them."
Oh my
And
God. And
and
this
so,
this
yeah,
is not uncommon because I've had so many people say like, "Oh my gosh, then he threatened to kill himself." And I'm like, it's not uncommon, but but it's terrifying. It's
that
terrifying.
yeah, and the lethality risk markers that police officers use and that people use that are in the domestic violence world. This is a lethality risk. When they start threatening
Okay.
suicide, no matter if they need it or not, even if it's just a threat, that is a lethality risk for future harm of homicide.
Thank you for
Um,
telling us that. Okay, thank you so much for telling us that. Yeah, and it's we know that when we get separated or we start to divorce, we want to leave. It's the most dangerous time for a woman. And so okay, so thank you that is a lethality risk. Okay, thank you. So yeah, keep going from there. My gosh, that's terrifying. So did you like rush home from there from your walk?
No, I called the police right away. I don't even think
Oh,
I responded. I hung up and I called 911 and I had them come. The dispatcher asked me if like I could go inside and get the kids. And because I knew that he had firearms, because we did,
yeah.
and he had access to do what he said he was going to do, I was scared and I had a gut feeling and I knew that it was plausible if I went inside, he would have killed us all.
Oh
And so I told the dispatcher, no, I don't feel comfortable. The kids are inside. But at that point, he had never harmed them previously physically. So I didn't believe that they were in harm's way.
yeah.
And so as I'm talking to the dispatcher, though, he comes out of the home and starts walking towards me. And I want to tell you, like, my stature, I'm 5 foot tall,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit over. He's 6'2" and
Oh,
he's like 220 pounds. And at this point, I was like 130 pounds. So he is vastly in size difference compared to, like he could
yeah.
take me down if he wanted to.
Yeah.
And so he's walking towards me, and I'm telling the dispatcher this, he's walking towards me, he's getting closer. And so she's typing all of this. He gets to me and he takes the phone from me. I tell the dispatcher lady, like, oh, I gave it to him. But in her dispatch notes, she writes that like she could tell he took it from me.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And then he starts to use the Darvo tactic and say, no, I'm not concerned about myself. I'm okay. I'm concerned about Hope and her mental health. Her parents just passed away and she just got off of her depression medication, and I'm concerned about her safety. So he's using
Yeah. Of
Darvo against me and to make me seem to the dispatcher like I'm the unstable one,
course.
which the dispatcher didn't believe him.
Oh, good.
She was trained very well, and
Okay.
she's relaying this all to the police that are on their way. And the police get there and they first talk to us together. And a couple of minutes into our conversation, they would like ask me a question, and then I would start talking, and then he would interrupt me. And
Oh
so
my gosh. Yeah.
they knew that that was an abuse tactic
Yes.
of control. So they separated us. So I went with one police officer and he went with the other one. And I told the police officer what was going on. And I said that, yes, he threatened suicide. And so, because he did threaten suicide and he did say, yes, he did that to the police,
Yeah.
he did state that
Oh,
they had
okay.
to, they had to call the ambulance and take him to a local hospital to make sure he really was okay. They were doing their due diligence.
Yes.
Um, and so when he went in the ambulance, the police officer came inside and I got bags packed. I had a friend that was coming over that was going to help take us to a
Wow.
hotel. That was what he asked us to do. At this time, he's asking me to do these things.
Yeah.
And I'm still like, well, why can't I remember asking him flat out, like, why can't I stay in my home? Like,
Yes.
what? And he's like, because we're worried if he comes back that something more can transpire. And he was alluding to what I alluded to earlier with him, shooting the whole family. Because
Yes.
that
Okay.
because that happens. That happened. So that
Right.
happens, and that's a part of their training. So he knew the
So he
lethality
knew.
risks.
Yes.
So I went to a hotel with the children, and I did let him speak to them on the phone and FaceTime, but I wouldn't let him know where we were because
Okay.
I was scared of him. And so
And of
the
course, and we
next,
have to stay safe that way. And I
yeah,
just, when we've been in it for a long time, we have the feeling of like, well, I have to tell them where we are, or they might even say, well, where are you? Tell me where you are. I want to come see the
he
kids. Or,
he did, and I didn't let him come
okay,
see the
good.
kids because that's what the police are. I'm very like type A, but I also listen to authority. So
Of course.
if a police officer is telling me like do this, this, and this, but don't
Yeah.
do this, I
Yeah.
gotta listen to him.
So that's so
So
good that you did that. My gosh, that's so good that you did that.
so so I let him talk to them. The next day I filed for an order of protection that was granted. It what had to be based on events that happened within the previous year, which is really frustrating because we did have abuse in that year frame,
Yeah.
but a lot of the physical violence as well was previous to that, like significant, where he like threw a pocket knife at me and it like stabbed me in the leg.
Oh,
Like that was like a year prior, so I
yeah.
couldn't use that. I
Ugh.
was told that I couldn't use that. Now I know that that's bad advice, but
Oh my
um
gosh. Okay.
the order of protection was granted based on sexual and emotional and suicidal ideation, like
Okay.
when he threatened suicide. So it was granted. And so because of that, he had to go find a new place to live. And I got full access to the home as our home base because the kids' school was right there and I didn't
Yeah.
drive. And it was in Arizona, they can grant like the residence to one party or another
Oh, okay.
through the order of protection.
Okay.
Um,
But how did you
and
feel being in the home after you guys got separated, once all that went down?
It was really hard at first because like all of our stuff is there, but after a while, I kind of like blocked out like
Yeah.
certain parts. Like I wouldn't like go in his office, like certain things.
Yeah. And did you
And
change the
so
locks or anything? What do you,
yes,
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yes.
You
So
just,
I can tell you a
yeah.
little bit about that story. So right after we came home, the following that night, my friends came over and changed the locks. And I told them it was really late by the time we got home and the kids were asleep. And like it was just such a stressful couple
Yeah.
of days. I was like, thank you so much for doing this, but can we do it tomorrow, which would have been Monday? I was like, can we do it tomorrow morning? Like, it's okay. I don't think there's going to be an issue. And they're like, no, we're doing it tonight. And so
Yeah.
they went to Home Depot and they changed the locks. It was really late. It was like 11 o'clock at night. And they got done at like 1 a.m. They changed the locks. This would have been Sunday, October 15th.
Hmm.
And the next day is when he had his psychiatric break. And come
Oh,
to find out, he actually, during that psychiatric break, when he did call me and leave voicemails, which didn't sound like him. He was talking about demons and cults and how our marriage wasn't a covenant marriage and all
oh,
of this stuff. And it didn't sound like him. And so, because he broke the order of protection, I filed a police report because he broke it, right? Because he wasn't
yeah.
allowed to call me or text me if it didn't have anything to do with the kids. And he also couldn't come to the home. Well, when he called me and left those voicemails, I wasn't at home. But come to find out, my neighbor was putting up Halloween decorations and he saw him come to the home, park in front of the home, walk up to the door, and use his previous keys to try to unlock the door. And when he couldn't gain access, he was like, shit, like he yelled, oh shit. And like, because I don't know what he was trying to do, what he was trying to get, if he was trying to get inside to hurt me. Again, he wasn't supposed to be at the home. And
Right.
so he, was like not in the right mind. The neighbor said he didn't even say hi to him. He looked all disheveled. He like
Oh,
just didn't look like himself. And that wasn't his previous like demeanor. Like he was,
yeah.
so like this is a complete change of like behavior. And so we didn't know all of that until that midday. I went to the police station, filed a police report for him breaking the order of protection. I got a gut feeling that I should call the school to ask about Alec and Lydia's, seeing how they're doing, which I never do. And I just got a gut feeling. So I called, and the secretary told me that they had been checked out early from school by
Oh my,
Brock.
oh my God.
And so we not
So
only
did
have,
they, let me ask you so that we can let the audience know too. Did the school know about your order of protection?
um,
And did
yes,
they,
but the
okay.
order of protection didn't include the kids at this point. It
Oh,
only included myself.
oh,
So he still,
really?
yes,
Oh,
that's usually how an order of protection works. It's really hard to get kids on an order of protection because it's a civil case when you go through
oh,
family court. So they usually say you have to do this through family court. Um, and again, at the time when I got the order of protection, I was thinking, okay, he's only abusive towards me. He's not going to hurt the kids. That was
yeah,
my mind. That was my thought process.
yeah.
And so when he took the kids out of school, he still had guardianship rights over them. He was still their legal guardian. He didn't
Okay.
have any right saying that he couldn't have them. But we were scared because he not only broke the order of protection, but he was having those voicemails that didn't even sound like him. Like it was like
Right.
I a different person had called me. It didn't
Yeah.
his voice was completely different.
Yeah.
Um and so the we found out that he had taken them out of school. I found out where they were. They were at a hotel. I got to talk to Alec. He was swimming and having fun, and they seemed okay.
Yeah.
And even though he was going through what we now know is a psychiatric break, the police couldn't do anything at that moment in time because the kids were safe and he had legal rights over them.
Oh,
So the police told me your best bet is to text or email him when you get home tonight and make a plan for him to bring the kids back to school the next day, which would have been a Tuesday. And I said, okay. I said, I don't like this, but like again,
right.
my thought process is like, hey, the police officers are telling me everything. Like again,
Yes.
I'm trying to follow their guidance and like
Yes.
trying to like calm my nervous system down because I'm like, okay, if they're not worried, I shouldn't be worried. Um,
Yeah, of course. And what else are you going to do? You don't know any better.
Correct. And so I made a plan with him. He was going to take the kids to school the next day. Everything was good. I went to bed that night around 8:30 because I was really tired. I got woken up about 11:30 that same night, and it was the police department stating that I needed to come to the hotel he was staying at because he had called 911 on himself, stating that he was having suicidal and homicidal ideations,
Oh
that
no.
demons were after him. He believed that myself and our church were the church of Satan. He believed Satan was after him. He put in the dispatch notes. This is later on, so I want your audience to know that like I know this all this stuff now, but at the time I didn't know this. But
Okay.
in the dispatch notes, it states that he stated to a police officer that Satan told him to sacrifice the children and Hope, but he
Oh,
chose Jesus.
oh my
So he
God.
so so that's in the dispatch notes. He verbatim told that to an officer. They convinced him to go to a psychiatric facility for treatment, voluntary treatment, and he went via police car. So I had to come to the hotel and get the kids and bring them back home. They were sleeping, thank goodness.
Yes.
Um, And he used the fact that they were sleeping um, in the courts later on to say that they weren't really in danger because they were asleep.
Oh my
So again,
gosh.
all of these little minute things that I'll get to with the Alec and Lydia Act
Yeah.
aren't possible anymore. So moving forward, I get an emergency order of protection, which grants me pretty much, it's pretty similar to like a protection order. It's like I get pretty much full custody of the
Okay.
kids, and he gets 4 hours of supervised time. And he didn't even get those 4 hours because he was in the psychiatric facility for 9 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So, and he was,
and was that
yep.
voluntary or were they holding him for that long because of what he was going through?
It was voluntary for him to go in, but they did um, release him in the care of other people.
Wow.
So I technically think they were holding him until somebody could come and get him.
Yeah.
So he was,
Terrifying.
because it says in the notes, that in the psychiatric notes from this facility, that he's not safe for himself or the community.
Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
Oh my
So
gosh.
we, not only have somebody that is a domestic violence abuser, now we
Yes.
have another lethality risk marker, which is severe mental instability, including
Yes.
homicidal and suicidal ideation, biblical ideologies that aren't rooted in reality. All of
Yeah.
these things are lethality risk markers for harm, for
Yeah.
harm of whoever is around that person. And so we go to a hearing in November, very beginning of November of 2023, and we have to sit in front of the judge and state why I wanted to keep the emergency temporary order in place, with me having full custody pretty much and him having 4 hours of supervised time per week. And I stated, exactly what I've just stated to you, why it's important. We don't know his medication. We don't know all of that stuff. We
Right.
don't know if he's stable. He's also an abuser, all of that. And he came in with his attorney, acting normal, presenting normal, like
Wow.
everything was good. And they asked for 50-50 unsupervised. They had a whole plan of like, these days I'm going to have the kids. These days Hope's going to have them, and then we're going to switch every other weekend. And I was like, he's not going to go for this. And he even stated on the record in front of the judge, my attorney cross-examined him and asked him about, do you believe on that night at the hotel that you put your kids in danger? He said on the record, no, because they were asleep. That's not a normal response, Mr. Judge. Like, that's
Right.
not a that's not okay. So in my eyes, we not only have, you know, evidence that the kids are unsafe, and he was just in a psychiatric facility diagnosed with bipolar,
Okay.
with psychosis, with mania, and but none of that was ever checked. He only put in the records that he was diagnosed with bipolar, and he omitted the psychosis and the mania. And because there was never any follow through with actually proving that diagnosis, that's what the judge went with.
Only because of what he wrote?
Yep.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
it was his word of mouth and what he wrote, nothing else. And so 2 days later, after the hearing, mind you, they get 60 days usually to deliberate for a temporary orders hearing. He took 48 hours, 2 days out of the 60. He granted 50-50 unsupervised parenting time. So, and in the filings, he wrote, for his findings, he couldn't find that Alec and Lydia were in any physical, emotional, or psychological harm.
Was this guy's first day on earth or what? Like
Nope.
seriously.
Nope. Nope. And so, yeah, it was just crazy. I was like, what? And so
Yeah.
obviously you have to do what the judge orders, which are the
Yeah.
orders. You can't go back on those. Everybody asked me, like, why didn't you just keep them from
I
him?
know.
Because
And that
I would be in jail. I would
exactly.
be in
That's
jail.
what people don't understand. I've had that conversation with so many guests. Like when, oh yeah, people say, like, why didn't you just keep him home? You can't. You
Yeah,
can't. It's against the law.
yeah,
And then they would have no parents. They would have one parent who's got psychosis and because you'd be in
yeah,
jail.
yeah. And so, the judge didn't know any of those lethality risk markers. We know that he obviously is not attuned to domestic violence
Yeah.
risk factors. He's not attuned to mental instability, um, which is crazy because he had previous history of like being on some sort of board of like child welfare when mental instability is a part of that. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, how do you, mister? I just believe that we were failed and we were a number in the system.
Yes.
So I had to learn how to co-parent with him. And it was hard at first. The kids didn't like it, but we slowly got used to it. And over time, everything was okay. He had a psychological evaluation done by the courts. It was issued by the courts. He had to get that done. And even in the psychological report, it stated that Rock doesn't seem as stable. Rock is not as stable as he seems, and he self-reported that he didn't believe his medications were working. So those were two huge red flags that got missed.
Right.
And also in the orders for the temporary orders, I asked if his medication compliance could be tracked in some way, kind of like
Hmm.
they track like a substance abuse or an alcoholic.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Yeah.
if they could track if he's actually doing it. And in the temporary orders, along with giving 50-50 unsupervised, they also put in there, if Hope wants to know if he's taking his medication, she can ask him. Like that's going to do anything.
What? My God. This is ludicrous. This is
This is
ludicrous.
this is why we have two dead children, and we didn't have to have two murdered dead children. Like
Yes,
this didn't have to
exactly.
happen. Like
No.
there was red flag after red flag after red flag, lethality risk after lethality risk after lethality risk.
Right.
And so yeah, we co-parented, and in May, it was May 19th, 2024. The kids went to overnight visit like normal. And they went to church that Sunday with him. They were seen running around. Everything was normal. They went to kids' church, participated. Everything was good. And that night, based on police investigation, he shot and killed them, and then himself at between 9:30 and 10:30 p.m.
And tell me the story about you calling and finding out where they were and all that.
Yeah, so on Monday, May 20th, I got a phone call from the school stating that they had an unexcused absence. And so I immediately called him and texted him, no answer. And so then I called my attorney and I told him, and he said, well, give it a few hours and then call for a welfare check. Because at this point, like, yes, he had these issues, but it had been months of like quote unquote stability,
Okay.
even
Yeah.
though it really wasn't. I was, kind of told by everybody else that everything's okay. So I started to believe everything's okay
Of
when
course.
it wasn't. And so um yeah, I couldn't get a hold of him and I didn't wait a couple of hours. I waited like 45 minutes and I went over there. I knocked on the door and there was no answer. I called and could hear his phone ringing from inside.
Oh,
So then I called 911 and I told them what happened. They came, they did all their safety perimeter checks, knocking on all the doors and windows, announcing themselves, calling his phone, texting his phone, looking in different parts of the complex. Because originally they were like, well, what if they're swimming? What if they went to the store? And I'm like,
yeah.
they're supposed to be in school. Uh,
Right.
he's he's supposed to be at work. Um, so finally, a nice police officer came up to me, and he was at the incident in October, and he said, "This isn't a normal situation, and the
Mhm.
situation in October wasn't normal. So I'm going to get permission from our sergeant to go inside, for everybody's safety involved. Are you okay with that?" I said, "Yes, I'm okay with that." And at this point, I'm still not letting myself go there to believe that they're dead.
Yeah.
Um, and so they went inside and they came out a little while later, and two police officers came towards me and stated, Hope, we're sorry to inform you, but all three are deceased inside.
My God, Hope.
So,
That's oh my
and yeah,
gosh.
yeah. And they were they were murdered via gunshot wounds to the head, and his was a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head.
It's
So
incredible. And you had said earlier that he just never physically abused them, but we had enough markers,
yes.
these red flags. And so
So
you're saying this
so
is not unusual.
all of these lethality markers. We had strangulation from me. He strangled me.
Yes.
We
Yes.
had suicidal ideation, homicidal ideation, domestic violence, abuse of other kinds, coercive control.
Yeah.
But all of these things are lethality risk markers, and you don't have to have all of them. But
Right.
I pretty much had every single one in
Yeah.
my case. And at the time, I didn't know what a lethality risk marker was.
Of course.
And so now after their passing, that's where I'm on a mission, and I want to make sure and I educate the public about these lethality risk markers
Yes.
that lead to filicide cases. Filicide is the intentional act of a parent killing their own child. Statistics show that over 700 children a year are murdered in our country by a parent or caregiver. That averages out to about 2 to 3 children a day. And this is a silent epidemic that nobody is talking about on a bigger scale. And that's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to talk about it, use the word filicide,
Yes.
not murder suicide. Use, if it is a murder suicide, then you use filicide suicide if it's in the form of children, you know.
Yeah.
So I try to have the media say filicide, which the Arizona media is starting to do, which is great.
Amazing.
Um, so I try to do that. I have my podcast, Voices Against Filicide, where I sit down and I educate. I bring on experts in domestic violence, experts in coercive control. I bring on counselors and therapists. I bring on lawmakers. I bring on families who have gone through filicide just like me, and we talk about their sweet, sweet children and
Yeah.
who they were and what made them shine. And because I want them to be remembered for that, I don't want them to be
Yes,
remembered for
exactly.
how they died. So
Yes.
that's what I do. And I speak across the country about these risk factors and filicide crimes and all of these things. And it's just astonishing every single time I speak. Half of the audience or more than half have no idea about any of this. So
No. And I'm glad you're using the word filicide. And when I first saw you, I don't know, found you on social media or you were on a podcast or something, and you came into my awareness. And I was like, oh, filicide, what is that? And so I've been educated. So thank you for that. Tell
yeah,
me about the Alec and Lydia Act in Arizona and how you decided to start doing that because the system failed you, right? The system failed you, and you're not the only one. The system is failing plenty of people. So tell me about that.
yeah. So I partnered with a friend. Her name is Amber. She reached out to me, and she is a Arizona Safe Parent, which means that she belongs to this organization that wants to make sure that children are put first and that they're safe within family court. And so she reached out to me because she saw me online and talking about my story and stating that I wanted to make change. And so she had connections to local representatives and senators, and so that's kind of how the ball got rolling. And her and I drafted the first Alec and Lydia Act. And then from there, we took the original Alec and Lydia Act and started pulling bigger pieces out of it because we realized that a 30-page bill is not going to pass into law. You have to
Okay.
make them smaller. And so we did that. And we originally had a mental health bill that focused a lot about on the mental health side of things. And then we had a domestic violence and coercive control bill. And so a lot of people ask me, like, um, our first frame of reference was moving forward with the mental health bill, but we kept getting like, blocked at every turn for that. And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I had to realize that, okay, we can move this legislation later when our country is on the hill of mental illness, because we're not there yet. We
No.
haven't climbed that hill. And so now I was like, okay, let's do domestic violence and coercive control. And so
Yeah.
that's a huge part of my story as well. And so
Yeah.
I met with two family law attorneys that drafted the Alec and Lydia Act, HB 2995. It's the Domestic Violence and Coercive Control Bill. We put coercive control underneath the umbrella of abuse. We made sure that judges have to write their findings in temporary orders with actual examples of why they ordered something. So no more of this, I haven't seen any physical or any other type of violence, so we're going to grant 50-50
Yeah.
automatically. Or, yes, he needs to have his medication monitored or substance abuse monitored. The abused spouse can do that. Like that's not a thing anymore.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's
So
terrible.
all of these things that failed me will not fail another family.
Oh, God.
All these things that I went through are safeguarded in the Alec and Lydia Act. It states in the Alec and Lydia Act that you cannot state that the child wasn't present for the abuse or for the domestic violence and coercive control. That can't be used anymore. It doesn't matter if they were there or not. It's still violence. And
Yes.
so they can't use that the child still wants to go with them. They can't use that anymore because
Right.
the automatic presumption now with the Alec and Lydia Act, if there is proven allegations of domestic violence of any kind, which is stated in the Alec and Lydia Act. So any form of abuse, including coercive control, which is a pattern of abuse, not just
Yes.
one incident, or pattern of consistent abuse of coercion, they can suspend unsupervised parenting time and go to supervised parenting time until the abuser overcomes the presumption of abuse, which is
Amazing.
which is huge.
My
Uh,
gosh, that is amazing.
So now it's not on the victim to prove that they've been abused and to keep proving that. Now it's shifted, and all of the blame, all of the, needing to get better and overcoming that
Yeah.
presumption is now shifted to the abuser.
Where it should be. Like, why is it our responsibility? Oh my gosh, Hope, that is amazing.
So, and we have other child safety first legislation in this country, and about 11 to 12 other states, there's other coercive control bills that include uh, coercive control under domestic violence. But the Alec and Lydia Act is the only child safety first legislation within family court that includes that, if there is any form of abuse, including coercive control, the parenting time is already supervised until they can overcome that presumption. That's not done in any other state yet. Yet.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So is it in other states? I mean, you don't have to know every single one, but in other states where this is not a thing, is it what you experienced where the system is just constantly failing the parents? Because
Yeah.
do you see the statistics higher of filicide in all those kind of states?
Yes. And
Mm.
and Arizona was the one state that did lead the country within filicide cases within family court. So everybody asked me, how'd you get this legislation moved so quickly? I'm like, well, you can't kind of fight with the data. If the data has shown for
Yes.
25 years that these, significant amount of children are dying, not just of filicide, but within family court proceedings at the time of their passing, that's real stats. Like the
Yes.
legislators and the attorneys and the judges can't just bypass that. Like, so I think that's why, along with other factors, I think that's why it really was kind of like, a set along trajectory, is because they couldn't ignore the data. They couldn't
Right.
ignore that not just Alec and Lydia have passed away filicide within family court, but previous children from the last 20 plus years in Arizona. So
Yes, exactly. We don't want to, they don't want to be number one in something like that. That's terrible.
no.
No.
So, and I'm going to continue to work on, passing this legislation or similar legislation that keeps child safety first within family courts, because that's what should come first, not parental rights,
Yes.
not assets and who gets the house,
Right.
not child support. It should always be the child first, and
Yeah.
it should always be individualized. We should never have a system where a judge goes into it thinking, oh, this is just a number in a stack of paperwork. each case within family court is individualized because, as you know, people don't walk into family court because their marriages are going awesome.
Yes.
They go into family court because they're struggling and they're getting a divorce.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Hope, I'm so sorry you became an accidental expert in this, but thank you so much for using your voice and making such a difference. And I've almost made it all the way through without crying, but thank you so much for sharing about
Yeah.
Alec and Lydia with us.
Can I share about my book that I published as well?
Yes, please. Yes.
So I published There's Still Hope, A Journey of Adversity, Tragedy, and Unshakable Faith. I know that this was a shorter, episode, condensed episode.
Yes, tell me
So
all about it.
if you want to know more about my story and you want to know more
Yes.
about what happened in the nitty-gritty details of how I was raised, where I came from, all the way up until present day of passing the Alec and Lydia Act, and all of the stuff that I gone through
Yes.
with the abuse and everything. It's all in here. It's available on Amazon through ebook and softcover book. And it is also, I'm very proud of it. It's also available on Audible. And I recorded so you will hear it in my own voice.
That's amazing. I ordered it this morning, so I have it on my Kindle right now. So I'm going to be reading. We didn't have time. I didn't have time to order your book before we had the interview. So, but I'm excited to read it and read more about it, and also put that as a resource. I'm going to put all your information as a resource on my website. I have a resource list because there's just things that, as I'm going through this journey, there's just things I can't help people with, and that's why we all do this different work that we do, and we can help each other.
Yep.
And so, my listeners and my followers need to go over to your social media and touch all the buttons over there and listen to your podcast and all that. So we're going to put every single thing in the show notes so that they can buy your book and support you, so you can keep doing this work and follow you and all that. But tell us where they can find you, and then we'll put everything in the show notes.
Yeah, so you can find me on all social media platforms at Hope in the Pain. You can also follow the podcast wherever you find your podcast at Voices Against Filicide. And we also have a website called voicesagainstfilicide.odoo.com. And it talks about Alec and Lydia, who they were as children, the
Yes.
Alec and Lydia Act, my book, and everything that I've done thus far. It also talks about another parent that I've partnered with who also lost her son to
Yeah.
filicide. So it talks about all three children's stories. And our mission is just to protect children and victims while also keeping our children's legacy alive.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I think everything that you've said is going to resonate with people, and I know it's going to reach the right people, and they're going to get the help they need. And
Yes.
thank you so much for making a difference. I'm sorry you have to do it this way, but thank you so
Yeah.
much for making the difference that you are. I so appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Laura, for having me on.
Guys, if anything resonated with you today, will you please go to the show notes and, follow up with Hope? Look at all her stuff, you guys. Just check out everything she's doing. And you are on Apple or Spotify or YouTube right now. So please like, subscribe, and follow us and touch all the buttons. Leave 5 stars and go see her podcast and leave her 5 stars so that we can keep doing this work and that podcast land knows that you love us. So, Hope, thanks again for being here.
Thank you.